Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on keeping track of assignments with Google Sheets and Excel. I'm Betsy Malarsic. I'm a learning skills specialist with the Academic Resource Center. And today we're going to be focusing on using templates in these two programs, both Google Sheets and in Excel. Just a reminder that the chat is open, so if you have any questions throughout, feel free to add it to the chat. So what are templates? Basically, these are customized documents designed for a specific purpose. So these have been pre-made. They're accessible to any user of Google Sheets or Excel, but a lot of folks haven't explored these options, or they know that they exist, but they haven't gone in and taken a look at them. They can be a bit overwhelming. What makes them useful for these purposes of tracking assignments is that they include formulas that can create a smart document. So if you are someone who doesn't have the capability or knowledge to create smart Excel or Google Sheet documents, such as myself, you can take advantage of these pre-made templates in order to have a really well-developed system. So we're going to be talking about both Google Sheets and Excel today and taking a look at specific templates because they are both quite different. And there's no better program. One isn't superior to the other. It's just that they have different features that, depending on who you are, might make one more useful than the other. So my general impression is that Google Sheets, their templates tend to be less comprehensive, so they're simpler, which means that they can be easier to personalize. So if you want more control over your template, if you want to add a row, delete a row, mess around with it a little bit, Google Sheets, I think, is easier to do that because it is less complicated. Excel templates tend to be more complicated. I would say they have more formulas, which means that they often have more purposes than the Google Sheets templates. But that also means it can be much more complicated to even do something like delete a row. It might impact the formulas in place. So that's something to consider. Google is web-based, so it means that you can log in from any device, doesn't even have to be your own device, and access your Google Sheet. Excel is more program and app based. There is an Excel app, so you can look at an Excel sheet on the go, but you're going to have to save your document. You have kind of your one set primary document. So not as accessible, but some folks might prefer that. Overall, I would say I personally prefer using Google Sheets templates for daily usage, so tracking day-to-day homework assignments, whereas I prefer using Excel for long-term projects. So if I'm looking at a semester as a whole, I might use Excel more because I think it's set up for long-term projects better. But really, it's going to depend on who you are and what your habits are. So what should you consider when developing a document to keep track of assignments? First of all is very important question, what is it that you want to track? Do you want to use this document to keep track of your daily homework assignments? Or do you want to use it to keep track of major assignment deadlines, such as tests and papers, or do you want something that can help you track both? And figuring that out is going to really help you which direction to go in setting up a document that can be useful for you. How often will you update this document? This might seem like a question you don't need to think about ahead of time, but you're going to probably gravitate towards a different document depending on if you're accessing it every single day or even after every single class versus once a week. For example, if you think about how often will you update it, when will you update it, and what device will you be using to access it? Let's say you want to update your homework after every single class session. That means you want something that's going to be accessible from your phone, that's going to be easy to access and easy to update. Whereas if this is something you're just going to sit down and work with once a week, you have more flexibility in terms of what format the device takes. And then finally, do you want a document that syncs across multiple devices or a document with one master copy? And both have their advantages. Really, the decision for that is based on your habits. But again, in looking at all these options, you want to think about how you would realistically use it and how this can be useful to you. So now we're going to get into using different templates. We're going to be taking a look at some of my favorite Google Sheet and Excel templates, and we're going to be jumping back and forth between the two programs so that you can kind of see comparable setups. So we're going to minimize this. We're going to start by looking at just how to create a new template on Google. We're going to start by looking at one of my favorite templates, the assignment tracker. So here we are on a new untitled spreadsheet. To get to the templates, it's really quite simple. We just go to File, New, and then under Spreadsheet from Template Gallery. There we are. So easy. And as you can see, there's a lot of options here. If you're interested in planning a budget, for example, there's a lot of budget templates. The one that we are going to start looking at is titled Assignment Tracker. And again, this is one of my favorite ones out of all the ones we're going to look at. This is ideal for keeping track of just day-to-day assignments. Really simple, really basic, very intuitive, but it's set up so that you can just kind of go. This has two tabs. We have at the bottom here subjects, and subjects you're not really interacting with this. This is just where you update your courses for the other sheet. So if we want to add another course, we'll call it cake tasting because I like to dream. That will update here, this drop down. So here we can choose from all the courses. On the other tab, we're going to go cake tasting. And then we're going to add our first assignment, which is, we're going to call it Red Velvet. Delicious. I'm seeing a question here. Hang on one sec. So the question is, are they set up in Canvas or elsewhere, or do they exist as is within Google Docs? So this just exists within Google Docs. I'm going to show you a few later that I've updated a little bit, but this is the assignment tracker as is, right? Very easy to use. And with Google Sheets in particular, you can edit them. I'm going to show you at the end of the session my master assignment tracker, which is the one that I use most frequently when working with students. So here in our lovely cake tasting, we have our assignment, Red Velvet cake eating. What we can put here, we'll put our due date. We'll say start date. Let's say it's a take-home exam. So I have 2 days to eat this cake. So if the start date was the 24th, and then the due date is the 26th, time is really just a tool for me to use. We'll say it takes me 1 hour to eat a cake. We can update the status here. So if I put not started, this is going to highlight in red. if I have in progress, we have the green highlight. And as you can see up here, when something's done, it highlights in gray. And then finally, the one feature I really like with this particular tracker and with all of these templates is you can sort. So you can sort this according to subject. Sorry, I keep right clicking instead of left clicking. You can come up here and sort A to Z. What I prefer to do is to sort by due date sometimes. Come up here, sort sheet A to Z, and now instead of by course, these are organized by due date. But you can go back and forth, and that can make it really, really helpful in terms of comparing what you need to do for each class compared to what you need to do right now. So again, this one is called the assignment tracker in Google Sheets. We're going to take a look at a few comparable templates in Excel. The first one we're going to be looking at is called Semester at a Glance. Semester at a Glance. So I'm going to search for this, and it comes right up. So for this template, again, this is how it comes. This first sheet, you need to put in each course block. So this is Intro to Computer Applications, and the Monday and Wednesday sections are put in individually. This is so that if you see at the bottom, we're going to click on Weekly Schedule. And this will update this weekly schedule here. So here we have just basically what your schedule looks like based on that first class list. So when I talked about Excel being more comprehensive, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing, this might be more than you need from an assignment tracker, but it's here as a feature, or this might be exactly what you need. Now, what's similar to the last sheet we looked at is the deadlines tab here. This is where you can put in your deadlines exactly as you did with the Google Sheet. Here we have your assignment, you have your course ID, your assignment, the year, semester, and then the due date. Again, like with Excel, we can sort these A to Z, so we can look at it according to class, or we can sort it according to due date. So I find that ability really helpful. So far, maybe you're thinking the Google Sheet version of this looks better than the Excel sheet version. We also have here though this fourth tab, which is semester calendar. This isn't going to give you the full details. I'm trying to get rid of the instructions, but you'll see that for the calendar, it will put in red all of your due dates. So a good example of this is this weekend of the 4th and 5th. If you are looking for time to go visit a family member and you just want to glance at this, you can kind of see, oh wow, that's a weekend where I have some busy things going on, not a great weekend to do things. And so that's just really helpful in terms of giving you a big picture look at things. We're going to look at another Excel template that's similar to this one that maybe I prefer a little bit more. This is called the Student Assignment Planner in Excel. And this is one of my favorite Excel templates. So this is one I have edited it. That's a tongue twister. I have made edits to this document. And I've added a fake assignment list. Something that I was talking about earlier is how you want to use your assignment tracker. Do you want to use it to keep track of your next week of homework assignments? Or do you want to use it to keep track of all of your major assignments, such as papers, tests, and quizzes for the whole semester. So how I've set up this particular file is I have put in my next week's worth of homework assignments, but I've also put in all of my major deadlines for the next semester. So that means I've put in recurring journal entries, tests, papers, quizzes through May, but I've only put in homework assignments for the next week. So with that kind of approach, I'm probably planning on checking in with this document once a week so that I can update my homework. But by checking it once a week and already having my major assignments in here, it'll help me keep an eye on when big papers are coming up so that they don't sneak up on me. I have known students who have gone through and put in every single homework assignment for the entire semester into a document. That can be helpful to some, but it's not very reliable. As you probably know, assignment due dates for homework can change really regularly. Professors make changes. Some professors don't even have that information available at the beginning of the semester. So I feel like it tends to make more sense to update that week per week. So here we have this right now by due date. So as you can see, I have here's my homework for the next week. And then we get into my major deadlines throughout the semester. So for this, it doesn't have the course element separate. I needed to add the course. Just writing it in by description, but I still like having the course written at the beginning, even though I have to add it myself so that I can sort it. Because again, I really like having the ability to look at, here are my 3 major government essays. There are their due dates. There's a presentation. So I like the ability to jump back and forth between, here are my major assignments for each course, and here are just my deadlines for the next week. So here's what I have due tomorrow, here's what I have due the day after, and the day after. So what I like about this particular template is we have this list of assignments, but then it also gives you this week view, which it's not super comprehensive, but you can just go ahead and see that there's an assignment due each of these days. And then you can also click on the month view, which will show you, here's February. And it shows me every day that I have an assignment due for February. So that's why I find this particular template really useful for looking at the long-term projects, because then I can kind of see an overall month view. And I didn't have to add this at all to the calendar or the week view. These are automatically populated based on what I've added here to the assignment list. So that's why I find this one probably one of my favorite Excel templates. So these are all templates that are good for tracking assignments that you have due that week for homework. I want to move on to a few different templates that can be helpful for long-term projects, such as a thesis, for example. Maybe you have worked with before a Gantt chart. This is a super common project management tracking system that is used in a lot of businesses, and these templates are set up for businesses. So they have questions like company or who's working on this or stakeholder, but I think that they can be really useful in tracking long-term projects. They can also be really useful for tracking like a group project. If you need something that, some kind of document to help lots of different people come together and collaborate. So both Excel and Google have versions of these Gantt charts. We're going to take a look at the Google version first. So this is called Gantt chart in Google templates. And I have edited this for a thesis timeline. Because again, I think that's the kind of project that this would be really useful for. So these are meant to give you kind of a big picture view of really long-term projects. It can look a little overwhelming at first, so I'll break it down a little bit. Up at the top, this is just some of these elements that are business-oriented, project manager. You might not have a project manager for your thesis, but you can change this to be something else. That's where, again, the advantage of Google Sheets being highly editable. You can change this to be whatever you want. So we'll say favorite cake flavor, and we'll just say chocolate. And so I can just kind of change that to whatever is useful for me without impacting the rest of the sheet. As far as I can tell, doing that hasn't totally thrown off some formula somewhere else. So what we have here are different kind of steps in our project. So for the thesis, I've broken this into proposal, part 1, part 2, and revision. And then within this, I've put in each step. So we'll just kind of break down, actually, we'll break down part 1. So for part 1, I'm going to read source 1, read source 2, read source 3, outline part 1, draft part 1. Pretty straightforward. I then enter in my start date and my due date. From there, this sheet does on its own calculate how many days that is, and you can see up here in the formulas. There's a formula up there. That's often how you can tell if something's editable or if there's something else going on. And then I also put in how much of this I've done. Although when I do put in a certain amount of percentage, it will highlight automatically. So that kind of helps me get a color-coded visual of how I'm doing. So as you can see, the dark green is 100%. Then over here, we have the calendar view. We have week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where we get more into the, you can edit it heavily, but it doesn't do it automatically component. This I haven't updated, and this is something that isn't updating by date automatically. So I would need to go through and highlight this based on my schedule. Having said that, I can also change this. So up here, week 1 is Monday through Friday, but if I wanted to add Saturday and Sunday, that would be really easy. So on the one hand, I can do that, but on the flip side, I have to do that on my own. It just doesn't populate. This is simple Gantt chart. Again, I've updated it for thesis. And here we have the same different tasks down here. We have proposal, part 1, part 2, and revisions. So if we look at part 1, where I have the same element, here we don't have as much content. We have the start date and the end date. Actually, we'll go up here. Well, let's say if we put in progress 100%, it will highlight it. And what you may have noticed, and what I like about this one, is the dates over here on the right-hand side will be automatically filled in based on the dates that I put in over here. So I didn't have to come edit this over here. These bars, based on the calendar, filled in automatically. All I have to edit is this on the left-hand side. And then also based on the percentage, the color will update automatically. So we also have up here kind of the project start date and the display week. Right now it's displaying it from week 1, but if I change this to week 10, this will show me now we're looking at March, which for this project is going down here. So I think for these two Gantt charts, this is one where maybe I would lean towards using the Excel personally because it's a little more automatic, and I think that's more helpful for this. Whereas with the daily assignment, I lean towards Google Sheets a little bit more because I want the ability to edit it more. So I also want to take a quick look at just a few other templates that can be used for time management. This is not assignment tracking so much as it is time blocking. Really useful tools for if you are trying to come up with a homework schedule and how to work on when you're completing different assignments. So we're actually going to start first with the Excel scheduling tool. And again, with Excel, this is always the case, but this is one of many options, but this is kind of my favorite for these purposes. So this is the, again, College Course Manager. This is the super useful time blocking tool where you can put in different just different tasks based on the day and block out your time, starting at 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. So it covers about 12 hours. What you can do with this, and this is for the most part as it appears when you open a new template. I think I may have changed fall term to spring term. But again, this is a smart document, so you can change these elements to fit your needs. So right now it's starting at 7 a.m. If I want to change this, excuse me, 8 a.m., I'm not sure what I just said. It's currently at 8 a.m. If I want to change it to 7 a.m., now it is automatically added 7 a.m. The flip side is that now it's ending at 7 p.m. The other aspect I really like about this, it's super changeable, is time interval. Right now it's set for 30 minutes. We can change it for 15 minutes. So now we have 7 a.m., 7:15, 7:30, 7:45. We can also do an hour. So now we have 7, 8, 9. So I think this is really interesting how much you can customize this based on your needs. Different topic, but I'll just also highlight this particular template also has credits for keeping track of how you're doing, almost like a transcript tracker. It also has budget, which can be really useful, expenses. So this is a super comprehensive, again, document. It might have more than you need, or it might have exactly what you're looking for. So I'm also going to take a look at kind of the simpler version that Google Sheets has. So this is pretty straightforward. We have here starting from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. notes to do at the bottom. And then we have just every day of the week. So this it won't automatically update the increments, but you can change them on your own. What it does do that's kind of smart is up here for the week, if we change the date to February 3rd, it will update all of these days along here. So often when this is one I work with and kind of my master template. And so what you can do is just kind of duplicate if you want to make a new week and you don't want to get rid of the old week, and just change the date. So here we have the 25th, here we have February 3rd. So very basic, but very easy to use. So I wanted to mention this capability of adding new sheets within a document because it does allow you to customize this really heavily to create a document that's really useful for you. And so the last template I'm going to show you isn't really a template. It's kind of my master one that I kind of made and use with students frequently based on what seems to be really useful. I haven't done much here. I've taken the very first one I showed you, the assignment tracker. Here I have it just set up to look at assignments due the next week. We don't have all of the major assignments. And then I've also added the, here are subjects. I've also added the daily schedule, but I have kind of messed with this daily schedule a little bit so that I've added to the side 24 hours. It just took a little bit of copying and pasting. Really easy to do that. I just had to sit down and put in the work. So again, it's simpler and less comprehensive, but then it's easier to edit because it's not going to get angry at you if you add things. And just to show you how you can use these two together. So if we look at the bottom at our assignments, what do we have that's due tomorrow? We already did these readings for sociology. We have a Spanish worksheet to finish, and then we have to read pages 1 to 50 in Augustine's Confessions for theology. So then that's my subject guide. So then what I've done is kind of planned out this evening in order to figure out how I want to complete that homework. So right now we are doing a webinar. After this, I'm going to take a break. It's always super important to anticipate when you need a break and schedule them in, because if you don't plan for breaks, they're probably going to happen anyway, but then you're off schedule. Then after my break, I'm going to finish my Spanish worksheet, then I'm going to eat dinner, and then read the confessions. So this is kind of how these two sheets can work together. In order to fill this out, I just have to jump back to my assignment sheet. And then I also added this other template, really simple, just a to-do list. And I use this is just to-do list under Google Sheet templates, and I just have it to include other tasks because I want to have a place to track personal tasks, but I don't want it to get muddled along with my homework assignments. So I created this separate to-do list for things like email my professor, job application. Once I've done it, it crosses out. Another way to handle this is to add another subject that you could add personal, or you could add job, maybe internship, we'll say. Internship apps. And then over on your assignment, that makes these options. But again, you don't want to get everything confused so that you lose track of your homework. So it's really personal how you want to set that up. I think it can be useful if you have one particular task that you consider to be super, super essential, but I don't know that I would add like go to the gym on this particular tracker. That's why I like to have the other document. So I wanted to go over some tips for developing good habits for assignment tracking because this is a process, kind of learning to use an assignment tracker that works for you, especially when it's digital. First is just set up your assignment tracker early in the semester. These are systems that the learning curve isn't heavy, but there's a little bit of a learning curve, and it's going to be easier to develop good systems now than it will be later in the semester. And I suspect that some of you are already feeling like you're too busy to take the time to set up a system and that you'll do it later. But I also have a feeling that later isn't going to be less busy. So kind of setting up that system, whether it's just a paper planner, something else that you do that we haven't talked about today, figuring it out now, maybe sometime this weekend, sometime tonight, that's going to help you succeed throughout the semester. As you're getting into the habit of using a particular assignment tracker, I would recommend checking that assignment list at the beginning and the ending of each homework block. That will get you in the habit of using that particular tracker and kind of viewing it as being master assignment list. So especially if you have like a long weekend homework block, I would say for me, like Saturday morning would be the ideal time to sit down, look over my assignments for the week, update it according to my syllabi and what I have due. But then at the end of that homework session, also make sure to sit down with it and cross off everything you've done so that you are keeping it up to date. Another tip would just be to keep your tracking system simple and keep everything in one place. We went over a lot of different resources today, and I would definitely not recommend using all of them because it's going to get too complicated and it's not going to help you. You already have several syllabi, Canvas pages, Google calendars, email. You already have a million things in a million different places. So the goal with using Excel or Google Sheets to keep track of your assignments is to keep everything in one place, to keep the system simple and straightforward so that you can just look at one thing instead of 50 things. And then I would also recommend that you constantly reevaluate your process based on what's working for you and what isn't working for you. So if you have a goal of updating your homework after every single class and you aren't, that doesn't mean that you should abandon the whole system. You should ask yourself, well, what needs to change? Should I change when I'm updating this homework document, or should I change how I'm keeping track of my homework? If you want to keep writing down your homework after every class, but it's not realistic to access a Google Sheet document, maybe you should invest in a paper planner. Or likewise, if you want to keep using the Google Sheet, but you don't want to update it at the end of each class, then can you find a regular time every evening when you can sit down and update it? So again, it's a process and it's a tool that's meant to help you. So make the system work for you while also committing to a system. So we'll have time for questions in a moment, but I also just want to plug our next webinar, which is going to be on Thursday, Tips for Returning to Grad School. So if you are returning to school after some time away, we'll just talk about some ways to develop systems for time management and note-taking, and some other systems. This is also useful if you're an undergrad and just want some tips on how to kind of get back into the school frame of mind. But you can register for that on a link available at our webinar website located here. And if you have any questions about any of our upcoming webinars or about this webinar, you can always send us an email at arc@georgetown.edu. But we also have some time for questions. So feel free to ask any questions or add them to the chat. If you don't have any questions, thank you so much for joining us and happy planning. All right, so we have a question here. If you're only taking one class at a time, do you think using the same Google Calendar on my phone that I generally use is sufficient? I would say so. I think generally the reason I recommend using separate documents for homework versus major assignments is that if you have 5 classes and that you're adding every homework assignment for every single class to a calendar, it almost becomes too much. It becomes like white noise. So you almost don't see the assignments anymore. But if you only have one class and you just have those kind of single homework assignments time to time, then I think you're fine to use Google Calendar. Something I'll mention that I don't know a ton about, but there are a lot of third-party devices that will sync Google Sheets to Google Calendar. So hypothetically, you could take one of these assignment tracker documents and have it sync to Google Calendar. But again, I don't know that you can, I don't know how to do that through Google directly, I should say, and use some time, but you can kind of download these other apps and programs that will do it for you. So it's something worth exploring. If you're curious about that, you can just do like a YouTube search for how to sync Google Sheets and Google Calendar.